In the meantime, we'll go ahead and get started. Just as a little bit of background, I'm Kyle Farmer. I'm the owner and the CEO of Farmer Enterprises. I think that this topic today is pretty interesting, especially because one of the things that we're going to talk about is the implications that actually having a uh, vacancy has on a business. And I've experienced it too. Anyone that's run a business with a lot of people knows what it's like to be missing production capacity whenever you need it, whenever you have the demand for it from the customer side, someone's buying your good or service, but then you don't have the people on your side to fulfill that. It becomes very costly, and I don't think that people really quantify how costly that can be. And so that's one of the things that we're going to talk about. Oh, I should probably share the PowerPoint too. Let me do that real quick. And G, you can go ahead and introduce yourself in the meantime too.
Yeah, of course. Pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invite. My name is Gerardo Rada. I'm the Director of Operations of Farmer Enterprises. Before I joined the company almost 5 years ago, I worked in a manufacturing setting. So I'm very excited to be here because I've experienced uh, the issues Kyle has mentioned, both from a service delivery standpoint and from a manufacturing standpoint, right? So, talking about engineers and any other professions is uh, is something that I've over the years learned a lot about, and well, happy to be here, excited about this conversation.
Yeah, it's awesome to have company on one of these. Usually it's just me over here talking at my wall, but this is going to be interactive. So if y'all have questions as we go through, just feel free uh, to put in the Q&A what the question is, and we'll address it. So here's what we're going to run over, or we're going to run through. We're going to talk about the state of engineering hiring in 2026, and like I mentioned, what that actually costs you. We're going to talk about TNs and why TNs are so powerful, because they are quick, and they do get the types of people uh, that companies really have a hard time sourcing in the United States. Not only sourcing but maintaining in the United States. And a lot of times people get confused about the difference between TNs and H-1Bs, so we're going to run through that. We're going to talk about some compliance issues related to TNs and approvals. And then we're going to talk about what ready looks like before you approach a candidate, and then how to build a repeatable engineering pipeline. And so it's not just a one-time fix, but something that your business can actually rely on. We already talked about ourselves plenty. But okay, so yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. Right now there's 409,000 unfilled manufacturing positions nationwide in the United States, which is a shame because whenever we see these, they're usually really good jobs. They're they're repetitive. I think that there's some aspects of it that the U.S. workforce just doesn't really love anymore. They can be hard, but it is a shame that there's such a large number of vacancies, because they are good jobs, and there are people that want to fill them. It's just that a lot of times manufacturers don't use the avenues that they can to fill these roles. 4.1% average unfilled position rate per manufacturer. That means for every 100 employees, they're missing four. And it takes a while. It takes a while to actually source the candidates and to hire them. It takes about 2 months, which again can be very expensive. And a lot of this is because the domestic engineering pipelines that we traditionally have seen used, uh, such as universities in the United States, they're just not closing the gap fast enough. There's not enough kids that are graduating that want to come into this type of role or these types of roles. And so that gap just keeps getting larger and larger. The more that we manufacture here, at least that we don't automate away, the larger that gap's been getting. So this is the content that really struck me, because this isn't including some of the costs that you actually have with having a vacancy, like recruiting and reputational issues that you might have if you miss deliveries or you fail to satisfy a contractual obligation. But it costs you on average $500 a day in lost productivity for a vacant technical role, which is wild. I mean, that is it costs you more every day than hiring the person to fill the role. That's crazy. It's also tough on morale. If you've struggled with getting people filled in roles and you're relying on your other people to kind of make up that void, you lose productivity. You also lose morale. But yeah, this is 2 to 4 times more than the role's annual salary. And if you think about it, that's 15,000 to 30,000 a quarter in overtime, and just an overtime cost for a single unfilled role. So whenever if you're a manufacturer, going back to that 4.1%, you're talking about having a $120,000 issue a quarter, 240, $480,000 a year, just for those 4 roles that you're paying overtime in to make up with. So the numbers there I find to be quite striking. And the other issue with these manufacturing roles is not just that it's hard to find the people and that there's a large number of vacancies. It's also that there's a lot of turnover. 78% of manufacturers report voluntary turnover of 10% among hourly workers, of 10% or more among hourly workers. That's pretty high. 22% sees turnover over 20%. That's more than 1 in 5 workers every year are turning over. And so if it's hard to quantify how these numbers interplay, but if you've got 22% turnover and it's taking you 60 days to fill roles, it's costing you $15,000 to $30,000 over that 60 to 90-day period. You can see how it just snowballs and becomes very, very costly to not fill these roles. 30 to 38% of annual turnover is in production roles too. So it is the roles. I like to think of those as the money making roles. So that the money making roles, the ones that you really don't want turning over, are the ones that end up turning over. So, and as a business owner, I just found all this data particularly interesting and striking because I didn't realize how costly it was, particularly in manufacturing, to have labor voids. But you know the data is pretty apparent. And you know that this problem that just is continual. What's always striking to me is that I will talk with people that have been doing the same thing for the last 10 years, been having the same problem for the last 10 years, and they keep doing the same thing. They find a new headhunter. The headhunter goes and tries to find some people, or they're posting their job on Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever it is, and they're trying to build their pipeline still organically. They're not doing anything new, and so they're not making anything better. They're just continuing to perpetuate the same issue. They're not progressing the business in any way. They're just stuck in this cycle, and I don't even know if they've actually quantified how expensive this cycle is, the impact they can have on their business by fixing this issue. Maybe they don't even know it's an issue. Maybe they just think this is just the nature of the business. I'm in HR. My job is to find people, hire people, screen people, and maybe they feel like they're doing their job, and maybe they are. Maybe they're doing a great job. But the problem is if you're not doing something new, you can't really progress the business any further. And that's one of the things that TNs can really help solve. They can make huge incremental differences for the business by getting out of this constant cycle of hiring a headhunter, posting a job, interviewing candidates, hiring candidates, training candidates, and then boom, they're leaving within a year or two. It's very frustrating. But TNs can help solve that. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to G.
All right. So first, we're going to tackle and define what a TN visa is. And I'm actually going to start just making a quick note about H-1B because it's what we all hear when it comes to professional visas, right? TN is similar in a couple of ways in the sense that it is also meant for professionals. But it has several key distinctions. The first one is that it is not open for the entire world as opposed to H-1B. It was actually created under NAFTA, now USMCA. So only Mexican and Canadian citizens are eligible for it. The other uh, aspect that makes it special is that it is not open for all professions. There's only 63 designated uh, categories, engineering being one of them. Uh, Last but not least, and potentially the most powerful, is that there's no lottery, no cap as opposed to H-1B. We'll dig deeper into those that cap and lottery difference in a couple slides. But basically, what I like the most about the TN visa is how straightforward it is and how there's not really a lot of red tape when it comes to interacting with the Department of Labor or any other government entities as opposed to other types of visa. Okay, so in order for someone to be eligible to apply for a TN and for a role to be able to bring someone under the TN visa program, uh, we need to first make sure that this checklist is all true. The first is that the beneficiary must be a citizen from Canada or Mexico, not a resident. They actually need to have a passport from that country. The second one is the degree requirement. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but the person's profession, their college education needs to tie with what the role is actually going to be, with the role also being a TN category. With that comes the third aspect, right? The job offer needs to be genuine. It has to be one that qualifies under one of those 63 TN categories. And last but not least, just like with every non-immigrant visa, the person must have non-immigrant intent, meaning they should expect to go back to their home country uh, after the visa expires. Of course, we can there can be extensions. We can talk about that, but basically, the idea is that they're not going to be a United States resident. They're going to be in the country temporarily. And well, the aha moment here is that on paper, this is very simple. However, both at the consular and USCIS entities, there is quite a bit of scrutiny that's relatively easy to, or simple, should I say, to navigate. But these are the most common reasons why someone would be denied a visa. So we're gonna dig deeper into that in a little bit. Okay, so we're going to compare more clearly what a TN visa is as opposed to an H-1B visa. Starting with an H-1B visa, the first disadvantage of them is that you can only register once a year in March, right? So the way the process works is by the end of March, March 31st, a lot of people register. Then in April, you'll know if the registration was selected or not. And then after that, there's 3 to 6 months until that person potentially gets their visa approved. When it comes to TN visas, there's two different processes. Mexican citizens and Canadian citizens differ in this sense. Canadian citizens are very straightforward. They pretty much having all the required uh, documentation with the supported evidence. They can go to a point of entry to the United States, and the Border Patrol officer will pretty much approve their visa right there and then. So it can be a very quick turnaround. When it comes to Mexican citizens, similar documentation is needed, plus the DS-160. In this case, the delay is more because they need to go to a United States consulate in Mexico to get their visa approved. And those consular appointments are usually 3 to 4 months out. It varies. We've been able to find appointments a month out. There's been times where appointment dates are more like 6 months out, but 3 months is usually a good expectation when it comes to planning ahead. Uh, One important thing to note about TN visas is that there's no cap, right? There's no lottery, there's no cap. So theoretically, we can have as many TN visas issued in a year without any limitation of that sort. Okay, when it comes to the cost, TN visas are relatively cost effective. Costs vary in USCIS processes versus consular processes. And just to clarify what that means, if the individual is, in this case, in Mexico, and they don't have a TN visa, we need to go the consular processing route, then of course there's an MRB fee uh, to book the consular appointment. There's a reciprocity fee to be paid once the visa is approved. And when it comes to government fees, that's pretty much it. If the individual is already in the United States holding a TN visa, and what we want to do is extend that visa, the process changes. We need to pay uh, some fees to the USCIS. This fees differ slightly when it comes to cost to other visas. They're typically under $2,000 though. Um, when it comes to Canadians, it's USCIS filing fees are similar to Mexican citizens, but if they're in Canada, they're just going to get their TN visa approved. It's actually super low, could be as low as $50 just to apply in that regard. H-1B visas do change considerably. There's a lot. Well, first, we need to pay for the registration, right? And that registration has no guarantee of being selected. If the registration is indeed selected, there's going to be more fees due. There's actually right now a new legislation uh, pretty much mandating a $100,000 supplemental fee uh, on consular processing based petitions. This legislation is currently facing litigation. It is still unresolved. Even without those $100,000, though, the cost difference is significant, let alone let alone the risk, right? When it comes to H-1B versus TN. See, someone had a question.
I think that their camera, or yeah, I think that they're muted, and I don't know if we can unmute them. But if you'll put the question in the Q&A, we can answer it.
Yeah. Okay, so now thinking about how to plan ahead from a business standpoint, right? It's obviously when it comes to turnover, turnover data availability, each business is in a different stage. Like Kyle mentioned, some businesses don't even know how big of an issue turnover can be. Sometimes it's easy to forecast your future projects, projects, contracts, etc. Sometimes it's not. At any rate, though, when it comes to planning ahead, H-1B is relatively unreliable. Just to put some math in the equation, for the fiscal year of 2026, almost 3,500,000 registrations were submitted in March. However, only 118,000 beneficiaries were selected. That's 35%. Now, important note, the actual visa issuance is going to be way lower than that because there's a hard cap of $85,000. At 85,000 visas. This is 65,000 visas for regular H-2Bs, and then there's a 20,000 visa allocation specifically for individuals that hold advanced education in a U.S. University, right? So out of this 118 um, 118,000 beneficiaries that are selected, only 85,000 will actually get a visa, dropping that visa approval rate to 25, not even 25% of those that initially were registered in March, right? So pretty much 1 in 4 chances of getting a visa, assuming that everyone has an equal chance, right? When it comes to TN visas, no lottery, right? You can apply at any time of the year, not just in March. Um, Regardless of how far consular appointment dates are, if the process is USCIS or consular based Mexican or Canadian citizens, it's relatively easy to plan. And while um, approval rates may vary by degree, by obviously how strong the application is, how good the candidate is when it comes to the actual interview, etc., the chances of success are much higher, and it is under the filer's control to increase those chances of the visa being approved. So pretty much, yeah. Well, the difference is clear in that regard, right? Now, speaking about those chances of approval, right? Uh, there's a few things. Excuse me. There's a few things that whoever's filing and recruiting must be aware of, as well as the employer. The first is that uh, narrowing down the scope to just the engineering category. There's a lot of engineering disciplines, right? And there's a lot of jobs that don't require a specific engineer category. To put some, or to have a practical example, most manufacturing companies have the position of process engineer, right? Or process control management engineer, or a variation of it. In these cases, uh, the process engineering degree does not exist, right? They'll typically, depending on the company's spin, will want preferably an industrial engineer, mechanical, chemical engineer, etc. And to add to that, a lot of college degrees, especially in Mexico, sometimes get a little creative, right? And it's not as simple as a mechanical engineer. It's a mechanical engineer and something else, or engineering of mechanics, maintenance, and electronics, or whatever, right? So when it comes to really understanding what the degree is about by analyzing the beneficiary's transcript and the position's job duties, it is critical to make that analysis, to actually make sure that they're a match, and to clearly state so in the supporting documentation that is presented to the consulate or to the USCIS, right? When it comes to USCIS versus consulate, the USCIS tends to be more diligent when it comes to analyzing those details. Sometimes they'll issue a request for evidence, right? Like, hey, we are not sure that this is actually a match. We would like further evidence that this is the case. So they give you an opportunity to respond if that's the case. When it comes to consular officers, uh, scrutiny is just as high, if not higher. However, the diligence is not the same. Usually, those interviews last 3 to 5 minutes, and these officers are trained to just spot red flags. We'll touch more about what could be a red flag, but right out of the gate, if they see, hey, you know what? I don't think this role is actually TN eligible. It doesn't seem professional enough. Red flag. Likelihood of that visa being denied is super high, right? Or if the person's degree did not really match the position, that's another red flag, right? So one of the things that we do with employers is make sure that the job descriptions, the job offers, etc., are consistent with what the consular agents and USCIS officers are looking for, right? More often than not, the position is genuine. The individual actually is eligible for a visa under this position, but the officers locked their attention in a detail that was at the beginning of the job description. They didn't like that, and the scrutiny begins, right? So if we can go to the next slide, we can talk more about that. Okay, so when it comes going back to that process, when it comes to a Canadian citizen, turnaround is usually 1 week. Um, could be a little bit more depending on the how long it takes to compile the supporting evidence and doing or drafting the statement of support. But typically it could be relatively fast. When it comes to a Mexican beneficiary, um, usually we start by doing the DS-160 application. We book the consular appointment. We, after that, do the same that we would do for a Canadian citizen, drafting the same support, translating all the uh, evidence documentation, which is pretty much birth certificate, passport, college degree, transcript, etc., and compiling that into a nice packet, right? That packet will be then given to the beneficiary. The beneficiary will go to the interview. It's highly recommended for them to have some coaching in that interview. Usually, consulates can be quite a hostile environment. Nerves definitely play a factor, and the consular officers pretty much want to make sure, uh, going back to the beginning of the presentation, is this TN job genuine? Is the person actually eligible for the TN? Is does the person have non-immigrant intent, right? So when it comes to the line of questioning that consular officer might thread on, it will involve those three variables, right? So it is highly encouraged to for the beneficiary to have the coaching of what supporting evidence to show based on each question, how to respond to each question, what to expect to mitigate those nerves in the first place, right? Anyway, digressing, once during the interview, right there and then, the beneficiary will know if the visa is approved, and if so, the visa will be shipped to them usually 5 to 7 business days after the interview. They'll leave their passport there. The passport's going to be sent to the US, visa stamp issued, and then shipped back to them via DHL. Okay, so like with most government or visa-related processes, preparation is key. Uh, Good preparation generally increases the chances of success for the company, for the beneficiary, regardless if the beneficiary is Canadian or Mexican. Having the job description finalized with the job duties, having the correct terminology, the correct order, job title, etc., making sure that the wage is competitive, benchmarked. This is actually um an underrated aspect. That is usually something that consular officers look into. If, to give you an example, someone's looking for a chemical engineer, and we know that chemical engineers on average make I don't know, $70,000 or whatever, and the job or the yeah, the job offer has a wage of $12 an hour, automatic red flag for the consular officer, right? So when it comes to a wage, not only can it increase a proper recruitment process and retention after the fact, but also increase the chances of success of the visa being approved. Obviously, the statement of support, uh, TN letter being drafted, um, having all the person's documentation translated, and one very important thing is sometimes employers already have an individual identified that they want to hire. Sometimes they don't, and they need recruitment. In cases when they need recruitment, the amount of coordination between the applicants and the employer is high. When it comes to applications, uh, just like in the US, these people are looking for multiple opportunities at the same time, right? Moving fast is key, right? It often happens that, uh, or we've seen this when employers separate the recruitment from the actual government filing. Everything's being prepared on the application side, but the actual applicant withdraw from the process because it took too long, because they were not really receiving any updates of where the process stood, or things like that. And in some cases, they even already had consular appointments scheduled. There was some cost invested already. So having someone that can really coordinate both parties, keep both parties on track and updated is very important. Last but not least, onboarding and logistics. Onboarding is key for any hire, regardless if it's domestic or foreign, right? We're talking about foreign um, hires, in this case TNs, we have to consider, especially if it's their first TN, they won't have a social security number. They won't have credit. They don't even have a pay stub. They really have very limited options of what they can do once they arrive to the US. Giving them some support to start with really helps not only build a good employee-employer relationship with them, but also make that the TM program sustainable, right? You can stagger consular appointments throughout the year. Make sure that you have a pipeline of people potentially joining your company. You can be you can have faster processes with Canadian TNs as well. A lot of the manufacturing companies that I know tend to recruit engineers for a broad roles such as process engineers, and then have them grow from there, either in process engineering itself, just becoming more seasoned, but they may go to quality, they may go to new product development, to R&D, even to sales or to logistics. These people know the company, right? It's important to give them that pipeline inside your company, but it's also, if that's the company's plan, it's important to have a pipeline to replace these people. Once these people leave, like Kyle mentioned earlier, the costs are astronomical and the quality decreases, right? And that's a silent cost a lot of people don't think about. If someone has gathered knowledge in your process for 4 years and they leave, whoever you hire won't have that knowledge, right? So ideally, you want a new person, but you want the original person to stay to train this person, right? So it's just a domino effect that starts with that recruitment.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most underrated parts about running a TN program is just the brain drain from attrition, and then you remedying that with people that actually want to work there. It matters, and I think a lot of people don't understand how much that matters. Oh, this is me. Back to me. So yeah, this kind of just referring back to what we uh, what we were talking about earlier, and where the companies oftentimes get into a routine of hiring a headhunter, and then they're filling a role, and then they're training the person, and the person leaves, then they're rehiring that role. Uh, Now TNs is different. So this is where the road's different. So what you need to do to start the process is you need to identify the job, identify the people, make sure it's TN eligible, and then solve for the vacancies now. And then it makes it to where you can have your process for filling that vacancy using TN as a resource. And I never one of the things that I don't ever tell people to do is I don't say, hey, stop recruiting in the United States so you can use TNs. I never say that. I think of it as an additional tool in your toolbox. And so this is specific to the TNs. So then you'll bring in the person, or you'll identify the role, you'll identify the requirements, work with someone to help you find that person, collect the documents, get them to the United States. Once they're here, you can continue to renew TNs perpetually, and you can continue to build your pipeline of candidates. So TNs are awesome. That's the main thing to know here is that TNs are great. One thing that I do want to bring up to people regarding TNs, and we see this all the time, and Gerardo hit on this earlier. So oftentimes people they don't understand how the TN works, and so they either want to over apply or under apply the TN. I see it equally in both directions. I see it where people will say, "Hey, can I get TNs for truck driving?" And I'm like, "No, you can't. It's not a professional level occupation." But then they'll say, "Can I have this production engineering role? Can I get TNs for that?" And I say yes, and they say, "Okay, well, I didn't really think that it would apply there because they're doing blah blah blah, whatever it is." And so I see it in both directions all the time. And so the number one thing that I like for people to make sure of is that whenever you're drafting and reviewing a job description, and that's what the candidate is representing to the embassy or to the USCIS, make sure that whenever the beneficiary is actually performing the work, that they're performing the work that was disclosed to the government. You never want to inadvertently or intentionally misrepresent the nature of the job, either to the beneficiary or to the government. And the reason on the beneficiary side is largely because it helps with employee satisfaction with attrition. You want them to come in with their eyes wide open on this is what the job is, this is what I'm going to need to be doing. And then on the government side, if let's say that the USCIS investigated a TN filing or something like that, you wouldn't want them to be able to say, "Oh, you didn't say that they would be doing this." And so you always make sure that the job description is actually consistent with the boots on the ground reality. That's number one issue that I see with TNs. And so yeah, that's what's important. But yeah, I mean these are all the things that we went over. I probably don't need to read them back to you, but now from here, one of the things that we're gonna do is actually I can I'm gonna actually exit out of this. So sorry, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here for a second. Well, actually, I'll do that in a second. I'm gonna make sure there's no Q&As. I know there were some hands raised earlier, and I just want to make sure we're answering those questions. But so after this, we're gonna have the recording available for y'all. We have a guide available for you too on TNs, and then of course you can always talk to me and Gerardo directly, and we're happy to have conversations regarding TNs. And it doesn't even need to be, "Hey, I know who this person is." Oh, I didn't even realize my camera wasn't on. It doesn't have to be, "Hey, I know who this person is, and I want to bring him over here on a TN." A lot of times, the first conversation is this a good TN role or is it not? Are these the types of people y'all can find or are they not? And so, yeah, that's basically what we had for you. Gerardo, did you have anything else?
Nope.
Alrighty, looks like we don't have any questions. Gerardo, thanks for doing this today, and everyone, thank you all for joining. We appreciate you.